Happy Saturday! What's happening? Welcome back to Kevin Toll Reads. Today I have a book review of Grace of Kings by Ken Liu, book one of the Dandelion Dynasty. Finally got to this thing. I'm glad I did. Let's get right into this. This book is book one of the Dandelion Dynasty. There's 4 books. As I made mention, I've been trying to get to this all year. Knowing that I had 4 months left, I'm like, a book a month. We're going to do this, committed. Here we are. I've knocked out book one. This book was published in 2015 by Ken Liu. If you've watched the channel for a while, you know I am a huge fan of Ken Liu just off of 2 books. And both of those were short story collections, The Paper Menagerie, Hidden Girl, and Other Stories. Really enjoyed these. And you're thinking, okay, well then why haven't I seen your Saturday Shorts with the Ken Liu story? You will. Trust me, you will. So, what is the summary of Grace of Kings, of this epic fantasy? Definitely Eastern roots. That is typical of Ken Liu. But this story really opens with the fall of the tyrannical emperor and his rule under Dara. And Dara basically is a very large, I wouldn't say island, like as in Japan's an island, but a very large island with many different provinces in it, and surrounding it you have various islands, smaller islands as well, and they have their own provinces, lords and kings managing these different provinces, all under the rule of one emperor. And so there's rebellion after his death and people vying for power and political ascension, and it's just really cool. You have physical battles as much as ideological battles, and you can tell Liu draws really heavily as an author from China's warring periods in its ancient history, and there's a lot of parallel to the rise and fall of dynasties, and that is very clear in the writing and what they're trying to do here. Liu also does something really cool as well. I think he has a lot of influences, I should say, from Greek mythology, and we'll get into that as well. So the Grace of Kings really, in my opinion, as I read it, as you're getting acclimated to characters and where we are and trying to come up to why we're doing what we're doing type thing, it's a slow burn to get to the point, but you're really following 2 major characters. You have Kunigaro and you have Mata Zindu, both kind of different people. Mata is this traditional, rigid, brutal barbarian, physically imposing, loves to have the honor and hero, and he's going to raid and wants to fight and he's always on the attack. Kunigaro is the more ideological, the more pragmatic, humanistic, kind of a con man as he started out, and realizes the people kind of liked him. He's always taking care of people. And so you have these 2 opposing people. Their paths cross. They become brothers in a sense. And then you get to see how their friendship fractures, and the novel delves into the fact of that fracture and how they have different conflicting views of how the world should move on. And as people die and they're using people, and whether it's through battle or whether it's through positioning themselves to further where they think one of their providences should go, then you see like how they realize, maybe I'm not right, maybe I'm wrong, and they grow apart. And they become no longer friends or brothers, they could become enemies. And so that's really the story here for this entry of this overarching 4-book epic fantasy series. I really enjoyed several characters. I'll give you just a list. Kunigaro, obviously, Mata Zindu, Jia and Lady Risana, both Kunigaro's wives. I really enjoyed General Jin Masato. I enjoyed Ren Koda. I enjoyed Luan Zia. There's a bunch of other side characters I could probably throw on there, but those are the big ones for me that I really, really enjoyed. So in terms of what I liked about this book, and there's a lot here, so I'm going to just try to keep the list short here to keep the video a little shorter, but the world building is nuts. If I had to sum up my enjoyment of this book, I can definitely it's. I thought about this a lot last night when I was finishing the book. When you have a 650 page epic fantasy book, you expect that there's going to be some slower parts because you need to get inside this world. And the author wants to take you there and explain why he's doing what he's doing. After 400 pages, I was kind of like, where are we going? And then the plot actually started picking up. The first 400 pages are really a setup for this book one. And I think book one in and of itself is a setup for the rest of the series. The last 200 pages were great in this book. I really think it became really great when both Garo and Zindu, Kuni and Mata finally are fractured. And then you got to see like the overarching plot really is different. They're going different ways. And I don't think that's a spoiler in any way. But that's when it got good. So if you can have a 600-page epic fantasy book where the first 400 pages, you're going through all of this stuff because you know you've got to. It's almost like prerequisite just to get to the payoff for book one, and it's worth it, then that really tells you about the chops of the writer. Again, I had high expectations based on those 2 short story collections, so I'm glad it worked out. I really enjoyed book one. Some other things I really liked. I really like how Lou created this kind of, you have Zeus, you have Poseidon, you have Hades, but you have them in a Chinese Eastern philosophy way where they have their own gods, the older gods, and those gods are still involved in this conflict and the growing conflicts within Dara. And they can't directly influence, but they do indirectly, and they laugh and talk about it, and they're out kind of talking trash with each other. I thought it was great. I thought it was really, really well done. It definitely has that Greek mythology vibe to it all. I like how Lore explored the ideas of storytelling. This really jumps around not only from different POVs, but it also jumps around from the different providences. So in the first 400 pages, you can kind of feel a little all over the place, and that's okay. Just stick with it. It'll be fine. And he also does a really interesting job of chronologically telling the story, because you're talking about you're in the 5th year and the 4th month of so-and-so's reign. You know, like, and so you're kind of seeing like, okay, now, you know, the first emperor's dead. This young boy takes the emperor next, and now we're in his reign, and they're calling it the reign of righteous force. You know, and so we're in the 3rd year and 4th month of the reign of righteous force. And so you get to see that kind of chronologically time statement. I thought was really unique. And I really enjoyed that. Obviously, I liked Kunigaro. Obviously, I liked Mata Zindu. They're definitely yin and yang. I really liked that. I really liked the bromance. And then I liked them butting heads. And I liked how Lou was not afraid to end book one the way he did. And so I really liked that. Criticisms I have for the book, they're not mine, but I definitely could see some criticisms from a reader perspective, especially if you're not one that wants to make the effort to go through something like this. You know, you got 4 books, probably average page length is 600 a book. I think the next book's 750, so that will turn people away just right there in terms of word count and page count. But the pacing of this book is a little slower. I think the first 400 pages are a setup for the ending of this book, and I think this whole book in and of itself is a setup for book 2, 3, and 4. That is my belief. I've heard, and I've tried not to get down too far in the rabbit hole and online to see how everyone rates different books, but book 2 is great. It's a huge step up from book 1, which leaves me wanting to maybe start book 2 sooner than October, which I probably will do. The character distance can be, again, like I said, a little of a turnoff because you're jumping from character to character, province to province. There is a map. Like most epic fantasies, you have both a map and you have a glossary in terms of like a character glossary that tells you this person's, you know, this person and they're kind of related. And so you have those type of tools. And when you have those, you kind of know you're in for kind of a grand epic fantasy book. In terms of excerpts, I could have quoted a ton, honestly. There was one that really stood out with me, though. It was a conversation they were having, and it was between the 2 ladies. He does female characters really well, too, I thought. And one of them says, we're never as perfect how we're never as perfect as how others want us to be. So I thought that was really interesting and it stood with me. In terms of rating, I give this a 4.5 out of 5. I really enjoyed it for a first entry. I thought it was great. I definitely can see why some others think this is definitely the weaker of the 4 books. I really enjoyed the payoff at the last 200 plus pages. I thought it was really good. So that is my review, Grace of Kings by Ken Liu, 4.5 out of 5. I hope you're having a great Saturday, and I will talk to you later. Thanks.